Hello, welcome to Product Management tutorial from Launchpad. In this tutorial, we are going to cover the following topics: definition of product management, what are the different roles and areas of focus for different product managers, what is a typical skill set or backgrounds that product managers come from, what does it take to be a successful product manager, what does a product roadmap mean, how do you define success in product management, what are different responsibilities of a product manager, different kind of tools that product managers use, how do PMs make decisions. Then we'll cover differences between product management and some of the other roles. And finally, we are going to sum up the tutorial with next steps. How do we define product management? A product manager essentially does three things. Product manager's job is to deliver value to customers by building products and features, while at the same time making sure that you are generating return on investment for your business. And you need to use your resources, as an example, your software development team efficiently to make sure that you're working on the problems that need to be solved. Now, product management is somewhat loosely defined. Different product managers in different industries or companies could be doing completely different things. However, here is a list of general roles and responsibilities and areas of focus that you would come across when looking for a product management job. First one is strategy. And this is typically that any product manager would be involved in. And this is at a very high level, figuring out what the business should be doing as a whole, what are the types of products we should be building, what are the markets we should be going after. Second one would be technical. So these are the product managers who may still be involved in strategy, but then they might be working sort of a level below it, and they might be more focused on working within the implementation side of things. Think of them as software product managers that are coming from computer science backgrounds who could be writing PRDs and user stories and managing and working with the software development teams. Then the third role could be focused on growth. And in B2C, or as it's better known as the consumer tech product space, these could be the product managers who are heavily working on the data aspects of things, looking at analytics, running A/B tests, and those kind of things to make sure that you are improving retention, you are signing up more users. Then we have marketing, and you may have come across this job profile or title known as product marketing manager as an example. And these folks may be primarily working on the marketing things. And if you're interested in learning more about what marketing means, you can look at our marketing tutorial. And then finally, you could have some PMs who are working either at junior or associate level, or are working sort of in a project management or more product ownership capacity, where they are taking the input for product managers who are working at a strategic level. And then their job could be to simply turn those PRDs into user stories, as an example, if we refer to the Scrum framework that we covered in one of our other tutorials. And their job primarily will be to make sure that the development stuff, be it the software industry or any other industry, gets out of the door. Continuing from our last screen, let's take a look at the skill set or different backgrounds that product managers typically come from. Someone working on the strategic side of things may have a business background or a background in management consulting. And in terms of education, they might have an MBA degree, as an example. Someone who's working on the more technical side of things within product management may have background in science, engineering, mathematics, because they need to get into the weed of things. Someone working on the growth side of things need to be highly analytical. And then finally, someone working on the marketing side of things may have past experience or education through a business degree in the field of marketing. But remember that this is not an exhaustive list. The one thing that matters more than anything to break into product management and be a successful PM is to have passion for solving your customers' pain points. Now, going outside the skill sets and backgrounds, what would make a great product manager? It is three things. Empathy. You should be living in the shoes of your customers day in and day out, in the sense that you should become aware of the problems that they are going to face 10 months from now. And you should be able to tell them what they need as against what they are asking for. And you should be able to feel their pain. So that is the most important thing. Second would be communication skills. Often as a PM, you would be working with diverse set of stakeholders. You could be working with the leadership team within the organization. You would be working with the customers. You would be working with the development team. And all of them would understand different languages. And you should be able to communicate with them not just verbally, but through other forms of communication, like through written documentation. And finally, it is relationship building skills. So as a product manager, for you to be successful, you need to have great relations with everyone across the board, because you never know, you may need anyone's help to drive a project towards its completion. As an example, you might need to have someone from the business team back your project, be it financially or from a decision-making perspective. From the customer perspective, you might need their feedback in terms of collecting surveys, getting their ideas, participating in focus groups, and then you might need help from the development teams. Pretty much all the times when you are close to finishing up a release cycle, you may need your development teams who are already stressed to sort of work around the clock. And for that to happen, you need to have a relationship that just goes beyond sort of that 9 to 5 thing. We briefly touched upon product strategy earlier on in this video. Now let's discuss what it means. A product strategy is essentially product roadmap. That's how it's defined. Your product roadmap has three pieces: vision, goals, and initiatives. What does vision mean? Vision means at a very high level what your company or product is trying to do. What are they trying to solve for? Why vision is important? Vision is generally a 1 to 2 sentence statement, and it's critical to have a well-defined vision, because often as a PM, you will come across various opportunities to build as part of your product portfolio. But it's important to remind yourself what is the main market you are going after, because if you're going after everyone, you're going after no one. Think of it. You may have a product for which the core vision is to improve patient outcomes. And so your product is purely focused on healthcare technology. But if you start building something that improves patients' access to getting better healthcare plans, it might not be sort of a key problem that you are trying to solve for. Second part of your roadmap is goals. So the roadmaps are typically 3 year long, but you would want to have goals that can be accomplished sort of year to year basis. Some companies have kind of shorter sprint cycles or shorter release cycles, especially in an agile and scrum environment. But nonetheless, you should have goals that are generally measurable. So think of it something that should point back to your customers or your business. So how is building something going to improve your ROI, your profits or revenue to the business? Or other example could be increasing your number of customers, increasing number of daily or monthly active users. Then how do you deliver value to customers? Maybe you want to keep your customer evaluation, the feedback, the scores that they gave you above a certain point. That could be a good example. And then finally, you have initiatives. And initiatives essentially is a list of things that you are going to do to meet your goals. So it could be building new products, new features, it may be working on partnerships, it may be working on pricing or marketing activities. Now, how does one define success in product management? As we discussed in the last screen, the goals part of your roadmap should generally be measurable as much as possible. So, with some exceptions, and as an example, if you're working on some strategic partnerships, that apart, most of the initiatives and their impact on your product, your roadmap, and to your business and to your customers should be measured. So here are some examples of KPIs, and these kind of tie back to one of the earlier screens that we looked at in the product management definition. You can measure your success along these three lines: to your customer, to your business, and then how well you're utilizing your development resources. So think of it. How do you figure out what sort of value you provided to the customers? You look at the features that were released. You can directly look at the customer rating or the feedback that they provided you. Then you can proactively look at the app analytics to see how customers are engaging with your application and new features, and is it truly adding, providing them any incremental value. Then you look at the value that you provide to your business: revenue, profits, number of users or customers signed, daily or monthly active users. Now, some of these metrics may not be true dollar amounts, but think of it in terms of valuation. Eventually, the two point back to the revenue and sort of the other financial metrics that are important to the company. And finally, if you're working at a technical level, working with the development team, then the technical aspects such as system reliability, uptime, the number of critical bugs, did you release the features on time? All those things kind of matter as well. Now, let's spend some time looking at the tasks that product managers generally perform on a day to day basis. Now, these tasks could vary based on product managers' focus. As an example, like we discussed earlier, someone could be working on the product side or feature building side, strategic aspects, marketing, pricing. So some of these things could vary based on product managers' focus. A PM could be working on market research, doing customer interviews and collecting feedback. Someone could just be working on the road mapping aspects of things, so working with the leadership and carving out the initiatives that need to be worked upon next and getting a buy-in from the stakeholders. You could be working cross-functionally with different teams. Generally, product managers, if they're technical, they would take a leadership role when they're working with the engineering teams. But when they're working with other teams like legal or finance, as an example, they might be taking bit of a backseat and sort of guiding them. Then product managers, as discussed earlier, could be handling the backlog, writing up stories, PRDs, other documents, and managing the agile backlog, as an example. PMs working on the data side of things could be doing A/B tests, looking at analytics, optimizing user acquisition and retention funnels, as an example. PMs who are working on the technical side of things again could be working on wireframing or doing high fidelity mockups. PMs generally also get involved in first to second line of testing to make sure that the software matches the requirements. Then PMs might get involved in different types of documentations. These could be going beyond, business requirement documents, MRDs, product requirement documents, working on user guides as an example, and then participating in the user training as well. Some of these could vary based on company size. As an example, with startups, PMs could be doing a lot of these things, but with bigger organizations, different PMs might focus on different aspects. And then PMs could also be, as they are expected to work on sort of end-to-end go-to-market activities, they might even get involved in the product launch aspects. And if you want to learn more about what product launch activities mean, we recommend that you look at one of our other tutorials. And then, as discussed earlier, the product managers, depending on their skill set, might also get involved in around how the product should be priced, because that's a key sort of ingredient on whether you would be able to hit your market goals and your revenue goals. Now, let's take a look at some of the tools that would help product managers carry out their responsibilities. From a documentation perspective, you can use Microsoft Office, and that covers pretty much everything from Word to Excel to PowerPoint, as an example. And then there are alternatives like Google Docs, and then there's documentation product from Atlassian. Similarly, for project and task management, you have Jira, which is a fairly popular tool, but you have alternatives like, product board. And then for upstream tasks which are not detailed enough, you could use Trello for discussion. For analytics, you could use Google Optimize, Mixpanel. There's Optimizely, Tableau or Power BI are really good tools. You can use Excel based on how your comfort level with the tool. And then if you have programming capabilities, you could use R or Python as an example. For wireframing mockups, there's Balsamic, there's Adobe XD, and Sketch as an example. Note that this is not an exhaustive list. There might be some tools that we are missing, and on this list kind of focuses on software product management, but yet I think it's sort of broad enough that product managers across different industries can utilize. Now let's come to the most important part of this tutorial. How do product managers make decisions? Product managers, as you know, are problem solvers, and you are going to come across problems on a day-to-day basis. Some of the problems that can be solved fairly quickly, but then some of the problems that are sort of more strategic in nature and have more long-term impact. So, from a simplicity standpoint, generally a product manager should break down the problems into two buckets. One is tactical, and what does that mean? As a product manager, you would generally have fair bit of autonomy. You have heard that the product managers are CEOs of their products. So a lot of the times you will come across tickets, be it bugs and or new feature requests. And right off the bat, because you understand your customer, you understand the market, you would be able to tell whether it should go to the top of the backlog or it should go right at the bottom. Is it critical or is it nice to do? And most of these tactical decisions, or a lot of them, would somewhere, have sort of an effort of, 4 hours, 8 hours a week or so. So you have, again, that level of independence and autonomy to make those decisions. But then you have a second bucket, which is more sort of a strategic bucket, where there's ambiguity, whether you should solve for that problem or not. And B, solving that problem requires a whole lot of investment. And what do you do in that case? And that typically takes you to creating a business case and then getting a consensus from within the leadership to make a decision around whether you should be solving that problem or not. Now, when you're making a decision or trying to write up a business case, how do you back up the hypothesis that you are supporting, whether you should build something or not? You use three things. You try to use data as much as you can, and there could be different sources of data. It could be customer feedback, it could be in-app analytics data, look at any market research or third-party data, white paper, anything that supports your argument. Then you go by instincts. As a product manager, you are the industry expert. You know what your customers want. So a lot of the times you're going to have a certain gut feel whether you should pursue an opportunity or not. And finally, kind of related to your instinct, what your instinct is built upon, you go by your experience and you go by your knowledge around the product, around the industry, around your target audience. Now, when you're making a decision, you need to answer three simple questions when you want to decide whether you should be building something or not. Is there a product market fit? So when you're building something, it should be it should be a drug. It should not be a vitamin. So it should be solving for a clear customer pain point. Secondly, can your solution scale? So if you're building something that's for a very tiny market, invariably it's not going to offer a return to your business, and that's not going to work. And finally, are there any hidden stumbling blocks? Think of it, you could build a feature, but your target market could be highly sort of dense and populated. There might be already a lot of competitors. There could be some industry regulations, as an example, that would prevent you from reaching a scale. So, any obvious stumbling blocks, point them out. And finally, the job of the product manager is not to say yes. If you could say yes to everything with your limited resources, then you wouldn't need a PM. So you should have the backbone to say no, not just to your business executives, but then to your customers as well. Make a decision that is in the best interest of everyone. Now let's look at some of the other roles within the organizations that product managers may have overlap with, or otherwise they might be working alongside these roles. You might find a lot of these roles across sort of larger organizations. So one of the roles that is generally discussed is one of a product owner. And again, with startups and even with larger organizations, a product manager or a technical product manager might assume all the responsibilities. So a product manager might not just capture the market requirements and write up the backlog and write up the product requirement documents. They might also take up the responsibilities of product owners, which is breaking down things into user stories and working with the Scrum team, as an example, or Kanban team based on the methodology that the company is using. But a product manager would be a role in itself, then their job would be primarily focusing on the execution side of things, making sure everything is getting developed and getting rolled out on time. Again, project manager, depending on the organization and their methodology, could be working on overall initiative once everything has been agreed upon. So their job is to make sure that things are moving along on the timelines, and then if certain resource needs are not met, that he can move resources around, essentially focusing on delivery on a certain project. A project manager, you can think of it as sort of a broader role compared to product owner, where product owners are generally it's a defined role for Scrum, as an example, or software product management, while project managers exist across all industries. And finally, you have program managers. These would be the folks who are working on certain well-defined initiatives. So for certain organizations, you may have a program manager who's working on with sort of four customers. And this program manager's role would be that those four customers are happy. And if your company is offering 10 products and a customer is not happy with one of those products, program manager would enable that communication and make sure problems are resolved. So while on the one hand, let's say if you have 10 products and if you have 100 customers, a program manager could be handling like four of those programs, four of those customers across all the 10 products, while a product manager would be working, making sure that all the 100 customers are happy with one or two products that he or she is working on. Again, with across organizations, program managers might be working on initiatives and not just certain customers. As discussed earlier, with smaller startups, there could be a lot of overlap, and you might find product managers taking upon a lot of these responsibilities that you would associate with project managers, program managers, or product owners. To wrap up this tutorial, as a next step, if you want to improve your knowledge around product management, there are a lot of great courses and reading materials and certifications out there. For example, in the field of UI, you can actually get hands-on training. for tools like Adobe XD, Sketch, Balsamic, and so on. Similarly, you can take courses on analytics, A/B testing. There are Scrum certifications to improve your project management skills. And then there are certifications on product management. As an example, pragmatic marketing is a great framework. You could take broader courses around human computer interaction, AI, data science, machine learning, IoT. And product management is a lifelong journey. So, finally, if you have any feedback for us, you can put it in the comment section of the video, or alternatively, submit your feedback on launchpad.com. Thank you for watching this tutorial.